Welcome to World Unity Week and our room journeys into New Earth frequencies and sacred geometries. Janice and I are thrilled today to introduce to you Vanhorn Hinnant, to those of you who have not yet met him. And a few days ago, Janice and I had an interview, a meeting with Vandorn because he was not able to be here today, and we felt that what he had to present and share with us was really important, and it is definitely in the vibration of what we created as our room of journeys into New Earth frequencies. And he is also a lover of, he is sacred geometry, and he and I share a passion of the golden infinity. Golden ratio, I should say. So let me ask Janice if she will start the interview that we prepared for you today so that you can, Janice.
Okay, before we start, I also will say how much fun it was. And I hope you guys have fun watching this. I loved it. I'm looking forward to watching it again. So myself, so let's begin.
Welcome to the room that is called Journeys into New Earth Frequencies and Sacred Geometry. Janice Coyle and I today would like to share with you a visionary artist who is a visionary artist of sacred geometry and uses it in creating sculptures, poetry and prose, and geometric expressions. And I have been absolutely blessed to meet this gentleman several years ago, and he is both a teacher of sacred geometry, a lecturer on sacred geometry, and another person who is in love and has fascination with the golden ratio. I would like to introduce Vanhorn Hinnant, who lovingly is also called Dr. Phi. So Janice and I today welcome Vanhorn Hinnant to our beautiful room. So thank you, Vandorn. Welcome.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here, Antonia. Yes.
Vandorn, you have offered to share with us something that you have put together that is just a small piece of your expressions that, at least that I've been familiar with. And one of them that you're presenting today to us and sharing with us is called Song Sounds. And I'm really curious about the name. It's a lovely name, and I would like to know why you were drawn to name this that.
All right. This takes us into the fact that everything that I experience, for the most part, that I can think of in terms of creativity is provided to me, my pedestrian awareness, from what I call higher self, or what some people would call source, some people would say God. So I'm simply a recipient. The name Song Sounds dropped into my awareness, and I said, yes, we'll call it Song Sounds. So that was it. I asked for a title, and the title came to me that way. But that's the way it is with all that I do. I'm simply a receiver of this information that wants to be shared with humankind.
It's interesting that you use the word simply a receiver when it is so powerful. It's not simply a receiver. You are a receiver, and you are a magnificent receiver, and also an expresser of what you do receive. So would you be willing to share some of your artistic expressions and also the prose and poetry that has been that has just come from your heart when you have rendered these beautiful geometric expressions?
Sure. When you say share, I am here to share you see in the background evidence of some of these geometries over one shoulder and over the other shoulder, and then above my head. This is the living room of our house. And then there's another piece in the back corner. Almost every corner of this house is populated with some of these geometrical expressions. So one of the things that Antonia and I have in common is that these beautiful geometries populate our awareness, and then we in turn explicate them, which means that we give them birth, and they're birthed into the world, into the three-dimensional world that we have our bodies, that we can witness. And these geometries have an impact upon consciousness. So when we see them, we're interfacing with a message. So I see all artists as being messengers.
Absolutely.
And those of us who are working with sacred geometry and the golden proportion, we actually have working through us something that consciousness uses to speak to itself. And so everything is consciousness, and we are a part of that. There are other ways of languaging this. You know, we could call it God, we could call it source, we could call it beingness. There are many words that people use from different ideological vantage points to say the same thing, the all that is. And we could go on, naming ways that we have been conditioned to think about life, the universe, and everything, to use a beautiful phrase that's been used over and over again, one of my favorite phrases. So we're in the video that we're going to share, I will actually talk about sacred geometry and give a definition.
Good.
We can introduce right now the idea of what is the golden proportion. Is it appropriate to do that now?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, and anybody can chime in between the three of us. The way I talk about the golden proportion is that it is a phenomenon that is ubiquitous throughout nature. It is a proportional relationship where you have these two parts, and there are more than two parts, like within the human body. The Vitruvian Man that some people are familiar with, and some people are, you can go look it up. Leonardo da Vinci, he actually did demarcations on the drawing that shows the golden proportion. So if you measure from your navel to the top of your head and call that one, and then you measure from your, and you're standing up, and if you measure from your navel to the bottom of your feet, that would be 1.618. So the Western mind has taken this phenomenon and put a label on it saying 1 to 1.618 to 2.618 ad infinitum. So you can keep adding these portions, and the key word is portions of this, of these segments of the golden proportion. And you can go infinitely larger and you can go infinitely smaller. And that in and of itself is a mnemonic progression that has to do with how nature unpacks itself from what is called the implicate order. So now I'm talking over people's heads, I apologize. But nested inside of the dream, the great dream, is this golden proportion, this golden relationship, also known as the divine proportion, also known as the golden proportion, the golden ratio. All of those terms is the same phenomenon. So I'll stop there. Does anyone want to add something?
No, that's perfect.
I love it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
How has this shown up? I mean, obviously it's moving through you. It's obviously a passion, a path, a connection, a communication, a communion. How has this expressed itself in your life? And can you share a little bit about how you just found yourself on this path of sacred geometric expression in so many different art forms?
I'll speak poetically and metaphorically and playfully here. I was traveling, and I woke up one day and this information impressed itself upon me. So I was traveling my life's journey, and then one day, all of a sudden, this information about the golden proportion shows up at my doorstep, and I'm speaking poetically and metaphorically here. And it was like a remembering of that which I had already known before. I simply didn't have the language, golden proportion. So when you raised your question, Antonia, what came to mind, what popped into my awareness is the fact that this, which we call love, is an unpacking from the heart of the golden ratio, the golden proportion. Now, we don't have time because, first of all, we don't have graphics to show this. But if you could see the energetic emanations that emanate from a human being, or any being for that matter, if you could see those emanations, those patterns, the golden proportion would be in those patterns. And so what I'm trying to say is that all of the energy that emanates from us is either going to be chaotic or coherent. When it is coherent,
Yes.
when it is coherent, it is experienced as love.
Yes. You know, it's amazing that the power of love and the almost insistence of love to be there. It is there. Everything is love, and you're saying this so beautifully. Thank you.
It is the healing force.
Yes. Yes.
Love restores sacrality.
Yes.
And all humans are looking for the sacred.
All humans are seeking what they are never forgotten. The total unconditional love of being connected with the source of all creation.
Well, I have to apologize for begging to differ with you. They have forgotten it. That's the trouble that we're in.
Yes, yes.
So our job is to remember it, which is to surrender. And we get out of our heads, we get back into our hearts and into our bodies, and that's where the divine is to be found. It is to be experienced. Once we surrender the ego self to the higher self or to the heart, however you want to think of it, that's when the beauty manifests. And this is what we're looking for, our way back to the sacred garden. It is inside of each one of us. It has simply been forgotten, overlooked. You know, some people have built fortresses over this beautiful heart. And those fortresses have to be dissolved like the walls of Jericho. Okay. So thank you for that remembering.
Remembering who and what we really are, ourselves.
And for those who do not know what the word remembering means, it means to put back together. Yes. So Greg Braden introduced a beautiful concept many, many years ago, which was this notion of having lost something, having given it away, or having had it stolen from us. So our job is to recover. Some people think of it as soul retrieval, to recover that which we either gave away, we had stolen from us, or that we lost. That's the journey of every human being, to remember, put back together that which had been dissolved, obliterated, torn asunder, forgotten, buried. Yes.
So Vandorn, I would love to hear a little bit more about your story about, you were talking about the golden proportion kind of coming back into your awareness, remembering from other times. How did it begin to express itself in your artistic expression? You have a background in art, obviously.
Yes. And that background in art did not touch on the golden proportions, which is a curious tragedy and travesty that most people suffer or endure. And what I'm getting at is that the information that has been available to us as a species has not been shared far and wide. And that is one of the reasons that we're in the trouble that we're in. When the golden proportion as a phenomenon is introduced to the human intellect, it is an immediate reconnection with the sacred and the divine dimension of being. So that being said, when I was introduced to the concept of the golden proportion, the golden ratio, that began this remembering, this uncovering of what had already been with me forever. Like I said before, we have all, in a manner of speaking, we have all forgotten what it means to be one with the sacred and the divine. And what these geometries do for humans is help them to remember, help them to restore and recover lost awareness of the sacred and the divine. So now I'm talking about alchemical formulas that are being put in the public domain for the purpose of restoration. And when I say restoration, I'm talking about a restoring of the divine and the sacred in our awareness, so that we each become living examples of truth, beauty, and goodness.
No small undertaking.
No.
But a joy, a great joy to be engaged with. Yes.
Yeah. Are you open to sharing some of those with us now?
Oh, sure. So I'll say that what I'm about to do is share with you a presentation that I put together just a few days ago. I've been doing these presentations, creating these presentations for quite some time now. And so this particular presentation is titled Song Sounds, number 2, The Metaphysical Musings and Poetry of Visionary Artist Vandorn Hinnant. Sound can be thought of as a living architecture of consciousness. The spoken word can serve as a vehicle to transport one to higher plateaus of awareness. These poems and metaphysical musings are love offerings intended to speak to your appreciation for poetry. So the image that you see here on the screen, that's a quote from many years ago. I think it was 1999. Food for the body supports the body's growth. The arts, food for the soul, supports the soul's growth. What foods do we feed our souls? And for what growing? So I've been writing for decades now, and I'm 70 years of age. I've been writing since I was a very young person, poetry, metaphysical musings, and that's the extent of the writing. So I've even penned a few things that I consider to be lyrics for sounds, which haven't been shared. Should I read from the next one?
Please do.
Okay. Don't worry about saving these songs. Life is one continuous string of singing, like pearls strung as a necklace, one next to another, next to another. If one instrument breaks, it doesn't matter. Life's voices are certain to fill those spaces, for we have fallen into the place where everything is new.
Beautiful. Can I ask you to mention to the audience that this is your art? This is your expression of sacred geometry and the way it speaks to you, and that you are totally immersed your entire life into expressions like this.
Yes, in 1989, I met a man named Robert Lee Powell Sr., who was teaching sacred geometry classes. And he was teaching something called the 12 pages. So I took the class. It was a 2-day process. And then that was when I became this, I don't even know how to say it, this completely inspired individual who did the deepest dive possible into sacred geometry And so this is one example, this image is one example of my relationship to these ancient teachings that we call sacred geometry. And if you look at the diagram, you'll see a northern point, a point that represents the north, south, east, and west, those four axes.
Mhm.
And this is titled, I gave this piece the title Light Prism because it represents the 6 rays plus their sub-rays, which would be the secondary and the tertiary colors, I believe. But this is just one diagram that I think of as an alchemical formula that helps to tap into our memory as
Mhm.
human beings of the sacred and the divine. So this is the way I talk about these compositions, as if they are alchemical formulas that are for the purpose of transmutation. And I want to make a small commentary about this particular piece of writing, because at the bottom, I say Vandorn's adaptation from Jalaluddin Rumi's musings. So thanks to Coleman Barks, we have a gigantic repository of information that comes to us from this ancient sage mystic from Persia who was known as Jalaluddin Rumi. And he had other names, of course. But the point is that Coleman Barks translated so much of this for English-speaking people. And what happened when I came upon Rumi's writings, thanks to Coleman Barks, is I began this correspondence with Rumi, this trans-temporal correspondence with Rumi. So I would read something that Coleman Barks had written, and I would give my response. Now, in the ancient tradition from Rumi's time, that's called zikar, which is a process of sitting with individuals who are in this deep state of meditation, where in music it's called deep listening. It's the same, zikar is the same thing as deep listening in music, when you have musicians who are at the top of their game and they know how to listen to one another and respond accordingly and produce something that is absolutely exquisite. So zikar is like that. So one person speaks and another person responds to what has been spoken. And it's like a conversation that's taking place between however many individuals that are there. It's prayer, it's worship.
Mhm.
This diagram on the left is actually titled Eye of Illumination, EYE of Illumination. It's just one of many diagrams, but the story behind it is that once upon a time, before we had the electron microscope, 3 individuals who were mystics of sorts had been asked to visually, how do I say this? To do a drawing of what the element gold looks like. And they did a drawing that is very much related to this composition. I'm not saying that it's identical, but when I saw that drawing, I said, it reminds me of this particular composition, Eye of Illumination. Now in living, it is all desire. The fire of love is a flame in mind, body, and heart, dancing itself awake in us, illuminating our paths, lifting our hearts, bringing itself alive now.
Mm.
Beautiful.
That's also called a word form. I gave poems that I create that have a diamond shape, titled word forms. So I've been writing word forms for 15 years or more, and I have a lot of them, and some of them show up in the book. This is one of the 2 pages from the book titled Love, Opera House of the Soul. And it was waiting 35 years to be given birth. It was just birth on my birthday, March the 15th of this year. And now it is available in cyberspace as an ebook or as a printed document. So let's roll to the next one, unless someone has a question. All right. What's on the left is one of my short poems that was written some time ago. We, inhabitants of the well, are never thirsty for more than a sign that the ineffable will suddenly appear and break the water's surface with light. Inside the well, the great mystery slumbers. awaken now and then. A visitor comes for a drink. We oblige. Sharing is the way. We know to live the now. I want to interject something here. It's early in this conversation to interject this, but it's important for me to say it before it is lost. My job is to repeat and to repeat and to repeat again that which is pouring forth from my heart. Wherever ears there are to listen, wherever eyes there are to see, this is where the beauty that lives within me wants to fall and land to do what it does. Lift, uplift, and evolve. And once again, I am just a messenger. The mystics of old had a habit of saying, it is love that fuels the stars. How would I know? I tend to hang out with them at the Trans-Temporal Cosmic Cafe, where everyone knows what everyone knows.
I love it.
Yes.
That was just written 2 days ago. And one of the stories about my life walk is that I have fallen into a place where everything is music. I have been gifted with an opportunity to surrender into this sacred, beautiful space and let whatever beauty that wishes to pour out of me and manifest. So almost every day, something like this is being written and shared with a small audience via cyberspace. And I'm working to make all of this available to a larger audience. That might require a team, which I haven't yet found, but I'll say that it is coming.
We are your team. Few new members. And I just want to say that in looking at your art and listening to your words, I got the guidance to open to deep receiving. Open to deep receiving here. And I said that to one of your drawings. It's like it had an energy of its own. I open to deep receiving. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Janice, I'm going to take us on a sidebar here and tell you about something that happened in 1993. I had a solo exhibition in Atlanta at something called the Hammond's House Galleries. And in 1993, I was 40 years old, I believe. I was born in 53. So correct me if I'm wrong with the math, but from 53 to 93, I think that's 40 years. So I was 40 years of age. And I had the solo exhibition there. And so at the end of the reception, I was giving a slide lecture. And at the end of the slide lecture, a woman at the back of the room said about the very last slide, which was the largest work in the show in the front gallery. These are her exact words. When I saw that painting, I was immediately transported back to when I was coming through the birth canal. So I've had this experience over and over and over and over and over again. The confirmation that these diagrams, these glyphs are sacred formulas that are meant to be experienced by someone, somewhere, sometime. And that someone, somewhere, sometime is none of my business.
Right.
My job as the messenger is to simply deliver the message. Where and when and how it falls is none of my business and none of my concern. So this diagram, some people may recognize it as being related to the rose window in the Chartres Cathedral. It is related to that sacred diagram. And of course, we are one is a definitive statement which shows up in different works of art that I create. The heart knows what the mind ever longs for. The sweet taste of love remembered. Now, I could have said the sweet taste of love restored, which would have been the same meaning. You can substitute the words that best work for one, but we are on a journey of restoration, and we are being restored to the sacred blueprint that lives inside of our hearts. And that's where the beauty is, to actually see that unfold, to be a part of that unfolding, that restoration, that recovering. Who could ask for more?
Yeah.
And this one on the left, the words were just written yesterday, and they were put on the diagram. Now, the diagram in the back is a beautiful diagram that one person who is a healthcare practitioner, someone who actually lives in Durham, she saw that diagram minus the words on a computer screen and reported to me that she had a complete restoration of her shoulder, her left shoulder. It was healed spontaneously by looking at that diagram. Now, there are many ways of talking about that. I will call it high magic. Some people are afraid of the word magic because it has a bad rap. But I add the words, and this is the second time I've actually put words on top of this particular diagram. The composition minus the words is titled A Light from Circle Island. And there's a whole lot more story that I could share with that, but I won't. Experience a sense of value and place in the world. Go out and share the beauty that lives in you with others. In doing so, you become one with the essential impulse of life, love. And then the one on the right, I just wrote that, I think last night. This moment now is all there is. Love leads the way. I follow. Yes, wow. Okay, so on the left here, this is from an exhibition that took place in 2014. And the only time that the wall text was ever used for the exhibition that actually went to several universities in North Carolina. Vibrations, Frequencies, and the Phenomenon of Relationship, works by Vanhorn Hinnant. And in the particular text, the wall text, let's read this. It is evident to me that the geometry of life used as a teaching tool is a platform for raising the dormant or latent spirituality in our youth. The best teaching is by example. I dare suggest here that the clearest examples of relationships are to be found in geometry. When we show students with physical examples and through living experiences that the concept of relationship rises out of geometry, they are able to see with their eyes and sense with their minds and hearts. Living, tangible evidence of what the word relationship means. And it is few. Let me see if I can read this. And it is here that such concepts as pattern, symmetry, and proportion, to name a few, are to be seen. With geometry as the body reference for learning about relationship, we can best illustrate principles of mathematics and arithmetic. Given this understanding, one is equipped with the foundation for critical and clear thinking, and is best prepared to navigate with a healthy respect for self in relation to other in the domain of community. So those words were not used on the other exhibitions, but there's a documentation of that beautiful commentary. Now let me return to this reading. Oh, let me go back. Our collective elevation into higher harmonics of the new earth frequencies is occurring via individual, conscious, and intentional recalibration of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So Antonia, you have been married to this concept of new earth frequencies, which you are introducing to the world. What a beautiful gift. My heart pours out a great joy for having connected with you on this beautiful journey. Antonio and I met 10 years or more ago, and we recognized each other immediately as comrades in this beautiful dance, this beautiful waltz called what I call the Great Remembering.
Mhm.
The Great Remembering, indicating or suggesting the great putting back together. So here we are doing this beautiful dance and doing just that. But the new earth frequencies, which Antonia places a tremendous amount of emphasis upon, we are elevating ourselves through this recalibration of our minds, as in thoughts, our feelings, as in what happens in our hearts, and our actions, the actions that we take every day. We are lifting ourselves into higher plateaus of meaningfulness, of right relationship with one another and the earth. And it is a time to rejoice.
And one of the things I would like to point out is that Janice is another person who is just, devoting her life to New Earth visioning and bringing people like yourself and myself to give a larger audience to the work that we have been guided to do. I mean, it's our path, and people like Janice give us a stage to present and a much broader presentation than we would do on an individual basis. So Janice, I want to thank you again for founding the New Earth Visioning Project also, in addition to this incredible World Unity Week that we are now a part of. So,
well, I can only say that it was founded through me. It wasn't my original idea. And for the last couple of years, my mantra, and I think I'm getting a little bit better every day with it, is that love is Lord of my words, of my thoughts, and my every action. So to the extent that I can accomplish that in every moment, things are coming through me. So I can't take all the credit for the visioning group and what we're doing. So it's all been guided, and it's wonderful to be an instrument. And it's such a great thing other than me trying to do it.
Yes.
So thank you.
It's called surrender. Yeah.
Yes.
It is the great surrender.
Yes.
So Vandorn, keep going. I love what you're sharing.
All right. This slide is from an exhibition that took place at North Carolina Central University, where that particular exhibition traveled to its next venue. The words on the screen, this geometry experienced through the senses resonates with the underlying energetic substructures residing in and around each of us, and has the potential of activating the often dormant awareness we walk with of universal order and the indwelling love, beauty, and grace of the soul. And here's a new definition. I make new definitions all of the time in terms of what is sacred geometry. So the shortest definition that I've ever crafted goes like this. Sacred geometry is a term we apply to our comprehension and understanding of how consciousness organizes itself in space and time.
Beautiful.
So those two totemic sculptures, those models for totemic sculptures that you see in the slide, one stands around 42 inches and one is 48 inches tall. They're made out of wood and they have text on them. So the text was engraved in the wood panels via a process that we are all familiar with now, laser cutting. And the one on the left is actually the sculpture that's behind the young lady that's standing with her back to us. That particular sculpture is called A Study for a Monument to Love. And the words are a six-stanza poem that is shared in the Song Sounds #1 and in other places. It's in my book also, by the way, Love Opera House of the Soul. Today, the world is experiencing a rapid and unprecedented increase in the dissemination of ancient knowledge on the subject of vibrations, spatial frequencies, and the phenomenon of relationship. With this sharing comes an opportunity for an expansion in awareness for the general public. The work I have taken on as a visionary artist is in alignment with this global sharing of information and is in accord with a long-awaited plan to assist humanity in gaining insights into a more holistic vision regarding responsible stewardship here on planet Earth.
Absolutely.
Yes.
In the diagram on the left is another representation of the golden proportion, the golden spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and anyway.
And the golden cube and the golden rectangle.
Mm.
And when we see it, it's actually, once again, it's a reminder of what's embedded in our bodies, what's embedded in our hearts. There is no place that the golden proportion does not exist in the natural world. So once again, if you could see the emanations coming from our vocal apparatus, you would see the golden proportion in those patterns. You would see them in what's called our auric field. If you could see those emanations in the auric field, some people who have the vision can actually see these patterns, these waves, if I may call them that. The phi phenomenon has now become an unavoidable subject in the arts and sciences. I have dedicated the past quarter century to disclosing, through my art and educational consulting, physical evidence of the efficacy embodied in bodies of ancient knowledge, which have been buried beneath mountains of distracting conversations labeled as. And the word phi, for those who do not know it, the word phi is related to the golden proportion. It basically means that when you see the word phi, it is implying this golden proportion, which is ubiquitous throughout nature. So we see it everywhere we go. It's in the digits of our hands, the smallest bone digit at the tip of our finger. If that digit was, let's say if that digit was the length of 0.618, then the next digit would be 1 inch, and the next digit would be 1.618. And then the next digit, which would be in the palm of the hand, would be 2.618. And so once again, this golden proportion, the phi phenomenon, is ubiquitous throughout the body. It's in every plant, in every animal, in every organism that is alive. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
This work, go ahead. Does someone have a statement, questions?
Mm-hmm.
This work of art, Time's Golden Arrow, is a visual statement about the golden ratio, also known as the golden proportion, the golden mean, and the divine proportion. This proportion is known to be ubiquitous throughout nature, existing in all that grows. Today, there are numerous treatises expounding on this phenomenon. Time's Golden Arrow shows us 4 golden rectangles in a specific relationship to one another. This dynamic creates what can be read as fourfold ratio. I believe I misread that. This dynamic creates what can be read as a fourfold golden ratio spiraling pattern towards the center of the composition. Color coding makes possible a clear reading of the 4 identical spirals. And since the audience is looking at this, if you can see this little arc, can you see my arrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That arc from the bottom of the center of the composition, that arc right there is color-coded red. This arc is color-coded orange. Now, this arc, this orange arc is embodied inside of a square. So that's a square right there. Okay, hold on for a second. Let's go back. Here's a square, 4 sides. Inside of that square is a semicircle. Here's the larger square right here. If you go from here to here, to here, to here, that is another square. That's the larger square. Inside of that square, you have this semicircle, which is red. So you go from red to orange, then to yellow, then to green, then to blue, and then smaller even is representatives of indigo and violet. So these spiraling patterns that you see, here's one right here. Another spiraling pattern goes from here. Okay, my mouse running over here, over here, over here, and here and here. We notice that we have the color green in the very center of this, which represents the heart chakra, the heart energy. So these 6 color-coded semicircles represent the 7 major energy centers in the human body, which are called chakras. And then the green is color-coded. You have these 4 spirals that come together in the center where the green is, and that represents the heart chakra. So these diagrams, these compositions are loaded with symbolic and metaphoric and poetic meaning. Could I ask if someone could raise a question or a comment here at this intersection?
It's beautifully depicted, and first time I've ever really seen someone take the geometry and to actually use it by color coding and allowing us to, actually inviting us to just kind of move with it and go into the center. So thank you.
Well, that was that was guided once again. You know, I don't think these compositions into existence. I feel them into existence. So it's called deep surrender, and simply allowing myself to be an instrument through which these compositions are made manifest or shared. So this is higher self speaking to the pedestrian self, or the higher soul speaking to the lower soul. In some cosmological maps, it's talked about the higher soul and the lower soul. William Douglas Horton uses that in his language of his experience, the Shapeshifter's Almanac. Antonio, you've received some of those beautiful daily musings. So we have this beautiful soul, William Douglas Horton, who has gifted us with something called the Shapeshifter's Almanac. And so he's speaking poetically and metaphorically about the higher self and the lower self, and he calls it the higher soul and the lower soul. So once again, these glyphs actually help to awaken something in us, to trigger a remembering. And it's a remembering of the divine dimension of being, the sacred dimension of being, which is the heart. And we're all on our return journey back to the divine, which is in all of us. It lives in each one of us. This is the last slide in this particular presentation. Every thought is an act of creation. Every feeling is an act of creation. The human imagination is where creation emerges from, onto the screen of the world. Let us awaken to our roles as co-creators and dream a new world where love rules the day and leads the way. And the glyph on the side, the diagram on the side, is me standing at Wrightsville Beach on one of my wife and I go annually and draw mandalas in the sand. This is the simplest mandala that you can draw, called the what is called the seed of life. My mentor gave it a different name. He called it was page 7 of the teachings that he was teaching. So the seed of life, which is embedded in the flower of life, which is embedded in larger diagrams like the one that I showed earlier called A Light from Circle Island. These patterns are to serve us as a reminder of the organizing principles in nature. And so it's simply a way of writing something called shorthand, writing how consciousness is organized in space and time. But there are many ways of talking about it scientifically. We have so many people out here. Robert Edward Grant, what's the guy's name? Robert Gilbert, Antonia Albano. We could go on and on. I could go. The list is incomprehensibly long. I mean, I'm talking about people who are living today, who are sharing this information. Lynn Claire Dennis, who I met in 2002. The list goes on. So this reminding human beings by way of diagrams, by way of glyphs, by way of sculptures, by way of words, by way of songs, is all part of what I call the Great Return or the Great Awakening. So when we get back home, poetic and metaphoric name for the all that is, source, God, there'll be no more self and other. And what do you have left? I am. Yes. So where do we go from here? Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for this. And it is literally just the tip of, I want to say an iceberg, but it's actually a tip of a beautiful tidal wave of what this beautiful gentleman, Dr. Phi, is actually creating and producing. It's actually just amazing. It's beautiful, and I want to thank you so much for bringing this to the world and your unique way of doing it. Just like my unique way is through the geometric shapes that I'm being given. And Janice's way is through, interviewing people and bringing consciousness to it. So I can't thank you enough. I know we are thrilled to have shared time with you today.
Yes, thank you. Because I'm a poet and I metaphorize all of the time, but we're part of the A team. And the word A actually means the awakening team, okay? Let me read the last line at the bottom of the screen. Sacred geometry is a key we are collectively employing on our journey into the new earth frequencies.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you also so much, being new to your presence and new to your art. I'm grateful to have discovered it. And I can tell people out there that might be looking at this for the first time and looking at your artwork for the first time, that these gifts you have felt into existence have filled me with a feeling and a deep feeling. And I hope that, and I think it will help others who are coming into you just now have the same feeling that I do. I wish that for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Welcome.
Thank you for your beautiful presence.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. I'll stop now.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure to have had the opportunity to meet Vandorn. So thank you all so much. We'll see you here in about 5 minutes for my introduction.
Okay. See you in a few minutes.
So bye. I just want to say goodbye before I leave.
Oh.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to
remind me to